It was July 13, 2023. The world kept moving, but for one couple, everything was about to change. A day that started with routine ended in horror. A young woman full of life and ambition stepped into what she thought was a loving relationship, only to never step out again. In the quiet of an upscale Lagos apartment, she was brutally murdered. The man responsible, the person she trusted the most. But what came next was something no one saw coming. Just hours after the crime, he did the unthinkable. He confessed. Not to the police, not to a lawyer, but to the entire world, through a series of chilling Instagram stories, a public admission of guilt, typed out in real time. And then, he disappeared. This is the story of Augusta Osedion, and the man who took everything from her. Benjamin Best Nanieri-Ugu, better known online as Killaboy. A relationship that seemed glamorous on the surface, a wealthy social media figure with a taste for luxury, and a secret that would send shockwaves through an entire nation. This case raises a haunting question. How does someone confess to murder for everyone to see and still manage to slip away? This is the horrifying case of Benjamin Best Nanieri-Ugu, the perfect image. At just 21 years old, Augusta Onyewagbagbe Osedion was the kind of person who left a lasting impression on everyone she met. She wasn't just beautiful, though she certainly was. She had an energy, a warmth, a presence that made people gravitate toward her. She was the kind of girl who lit up a room with her smile, the one you could always count on for encouragement, laughter, and a listening ear. Born into a close-knit family, Augusta grew up with big dreams. She wasn't just another university student going through the motions. She had ambition. She wanted more out of life, and she was willing to work for it. As a student at Leeds City University, she was juggling academics with her passion for fashion and modeling, steadily carving out a space for herself in an industry where only the most determined make it. Her Instagram was a reflection of who she was. Stylish, confident, full of life. She posted pictures of herself in elegant outfits, sometimes striking runway-worthy poses, sometimes just candid snapshots of her enjoying life with friends. But Augusta wasn't just about appearances. She was kind-hearted, always checking in on those she cared about. Her friends described her as someone who would drop everything to help if they needed her. She had an infectious enthusiasm for life, always pushing herself to do more, to be more. Her mother was her rock, her biggest supporter, her best friend. They talked daily, and no matter how busy life got, Augusta always found time to make sure her family knew how much she loved them. Like many young women navigating early adulthood, Augusta dreamed of independence, success, and love. She wanted a future where she could have it all, a thriving career, a beautiful home, and a love story that felt like it was meant to be. When she met Benjamin Best Nanieri-Ugu, known online as Killaboy, it probably seemed like she had found someone who fit into that dream. Benjamin at 26 had already built an image of success. He was the kind of social media figure people couldn't help but watch, not because he was particularly famous, but because his lifestyle was a spectacle. On Instagram, he presented himself as a self-made millionaire, a young man who had unlocked the secret to wealth at an early age. He showed off expensive designer clothes, stacks of cash fanned out like playing cards, and luxurious cars parked in the background of his posts. He had the kind of online persona that made people envious, flashing gold watches, posing in five-star hotels, living what appeared to be a life of endless luxury. To many, he seemed like just another influencer flexing for attention, but behind the carefully curated image was something far less glamorous. Benjamin wasn't a businessman, he wasn't an entrepreneur. His wealth came from high-stakes gambling, a risky lifestyle where fortunes could be won and lost in an instant. And with that kind of money came a certain recklessness. Those close to him knew that he had a temper, that his charm could turn cold in a heartbeat. He had a controlling streak, one that simmered beneath the surface of his lavish posts. But most people didn't see that side of him, not at first. On social media, Augusta and Benjamin's relationship looked like something out of a music video. A young, beautiful couple, seemingly enjoying the best that life had to offer. To outsiders, it may have seemed like she had found her perfect match, a man who could offer her the luxury and security she deserved. But social media is rarely the full story. What people didn't see were the arguments behind closed doors, the tension that built up in private moments when the cameras weren't rolling. Augusta, for all her kindness and patience, was no pushover. She had her own ambitions, her own voice, and she wasn't the type to be controlled. And for someone like Benjamin, someone used to calling the shots, used to having power, that was a problem. Their relationship wasn't as perfect as it seemed. There were cracks beneath the surface, moments where the illusion of a happy couple slipped. Friends noticed changes in Augusta. Sometimes she would pull away from social gatherings. Other times her usual energy seemed dimmed, as though something was weighing on her. But when asked, she always had a reason. She was busy with school, dealing with personal stress. She never let on that anything was truly wrong. Maybe she believed things would get better. Maybe she thought she could fix whatever was broken. Or maybe she didn't see just how much danger she was really in. Because behind all the glitz and luxury, behind the Instagram posts and flashy displays of wealth, there was something much darker lurking beneath the surface. And soon the world would see the truth. The perfect image was about to shatter. The illusion had shattered, but no one had noticed the pieces falling just yet. On July 13, 2023, Augusta Ocedion walked into Benjamin Nanieri Ugo's apartment at Oral Estate, a high-end residential area in Aja, Lagos. It wasn't an unusual visit. They were a couple, after all. At least, that's what people believed. But what should have been just another day between two lovers was about to take a turn so horrific that it would leave an entire country in shock. The sun rose like any other day, the world kept spinning, and outside those walls life continued as if nothing was wrong. But inside that apartment something was unraveling. Maybe it had been unraveling for weeks. Maybe the tension had been simmering under the surface, unnoticed by everyone except Augusta herself. The carefully curated image of their relationship, the expensive gifts, the affectionate social media posts, the illusion of happiness was already cracking. The argument that sparked the violence wasn't heard by neighbors. There were no reports of loud screaming or signs of a struggle beforehand, but something triggered an explosion behind those closed doors, and once the floodgates opened, there was no going back. Was it jealousy, a long-buried resentment finally surfacing, a moment of control slipping through Benjamin's grasp? Or was it something even darker, something he had been capable of all along? No one will ever know the exact words that were exchanged in those crucial moments. What is known is that at some point everything spiraled out of control, and Benjamin, once a charming, flashy influencer, became something else entirely. Augusta, a 21-year-old with her whole life ahead of her, stood no chance. Maybe she saw the knife before he struck, maybe she didn't. Maybe there was a split second where she realized what was about to happen but had no time to react. Or maybe it was so sudden, so unexpected, that she never had the opportunity to process the danger before it was too late. The blade met flesh, and in an instant, everything changed. The attack wasn't just an act of violence, it was an obliteration of trust, of love, of the very foundation of their relationship. The man she had once cared for, the man she had probably defended to friends and family, had become her worst nightmare. And then, as quickly as it had started, the violence ended. The silence that followed must have been deafening. There was no undoing what had just happened. The blood wasn't just on the knife, it was on the floor, on his hands, on the weight of what he had just done. And for the first time, Benjamin was forced to confront something he couldn't manipulate, couldn't smooth talk his way out of. Augusta wasn't moving. In that moment, panic took over, not grief, not regret, just fear, the kind of fear that grips a person when they realize they've destroyed their own life in a single, unforgivable moment. He wasn't thinking about Augusta, not really. He was thinking about himself. What would happen if he called for help? Could he lie his way out of this? Would the police believe him? Would anyone? The answer must have come quickly, no. So instead of facing the consequences, Benjamin did what cowards do. He ran. He left Augusta's lifeless body behind and fled the scene, disappearing into the city like a ghost. There was no careful planning, no attempt to clean up, just pure animalistic instinct. Survival at any cost. Outside, Lagos carried on like it always did. Cars moved along the roads, people went about their daily lives, completely unaware that inside a luxury apartment, a crime so senseless, so brutal, had just taken place. But Benjamin's escape wouldn't last forever. He may have thought he could outrun his crime, but the truth has a way of catching up, especially when the killer himself hands it to the world on a silver platter. He wasn't just a fugitive, he was a man who had confessed to murder in real time using the very platform that had helped him build his flashy online persona. But instead of turning himself in, He did something no one saw coming. As the hours passed after Augusta's murder, Benjamin picked up his phone and logged into Instagram. The same account where he had once flaunted his wealth, posted images of luxury cars, designer clothes, and stacks of cash, he now used to tell the world that he had killed his girlfriend. The confession wasn't emotional or filled with panic. It was calculated, methodical, almost surreal. He admitted to the crime but framed it as something that had spiraled out of his control, as if he were the victim of his own actions. He wrote about regret, about how he never intended for this to happen, about how the argument had escalated. But there was something chilling about his words, something that didn't align with the way a person filled with true remorse would behave, because even as he claimed he wanted to do the right thing, he was already on the run. The confession spread like wildfire. People took screenshots, shared them across platforms, and within hours Benjamin's name was no longer just known in his social media circles. He had become infamous. But while the internet dissected his words, one person was living through a nightmare that no mother should ever have to endure. Augusta's mother, Anu Wababe Cordelia, didn't need a confession to know her daughter was gone. Long before Benjamin's post went viral, she had already been trying to reach Augusta, calling over and over again, only to be met with silence. And when she finally learned the truth, it wasn't from the police, it wasn't from a doctor, it was from social media. Imagine that, losing a child and the first confirmation of their death comes from the very man who took their life. Cordelia was devastated, but grief quickly turned into something else. A relentless, burning determination to make sure her daughter's killer didn't get away with it. She took to the same digital space where Benjamin had posted his confession, demanding justice. She flooded social media with posts, sharing his pictures, calling on the authorities, begging the public to help track him down, and people listened. The story was everywhere. True crime pages picked it up, news outlets began reporting on it, and ordinary Nigerians who had never heard of Augusta before that day found themselves deeply invested in seeing justice served. The pressure was mounting. Every hour that passed made it harder for Benjamin to disappear completely. His name and face were plastered across the internet, his confession preserved in screenshots that he couldn't take back. But still, he remained hidden. That was until a lead emerged. The first real lead in months came from an unexpected source, a whispered tip from someone who had seen him. Someone who knew that the man calling himself Kanu Princeton Samuel was not who he claimed to be. Authorities had suspected from the start that Benjamin hadn't just gone into hiding. A man like him, someone used to the rush of gambling and the thrill of easy money, wouldn't simply disappear into obscurity. He would try to rebuild, to find a way to keep living as if Augusta's life had never been stolen. And that's exactly what he did. By the time the Nigerian authorities officially declared him wanted, Benjamin was already miles away from the city where he had committed murder. He had escaped Lagos, slipping past the initial chaos undetected, and found his way across borders. But he didn't just hide, he reinvented himself. Using a false identity, he managed to secure a Sierra Leone passport. The name on it was different, but the man behind it was the same, Kanu Princeton Samuel. It sounded respectable, legitimate even. A name that wouldn't raise suspicions, a name that wouldn't be immediately connected to the horrific crime that had made headlines. But there was something else. Something far more unsettling. Securing a fake passport isn't cheap, and for someone on the run, obtaining a completely new identity takes more than just luck. It takes money. A lot of it, and Benjamin had plenty. He reportedly spent over $25,000 crafting this new life. Where exactly that money came from remains unclear. Had he been saving it from his gambling winnings? Had he stolen it? Or, more chillingly, had he somehow manipulated people into helping him, spinning a new story about why he needed to disappear? What is known is that the moment he arrived in Freetown, Sierra Leone's capital, he wasn't just a fugitive. He was a man looking to start over. He settled into a lifestyle eerily similar to the one he had in Nigeria. New city, same habits. He continued gambling, frequenting high-end spots, surrounding himself with the same excess and extravagance he had always craved. For months, it was as though he had erased Augusta from his mind entirely, but the world hadn't forgotten. Back in Nigeria, Augusta's mother refused to let the case fade away. She kept posting, kept pushing, kept reminding people that her daughter's killer was still free. And while some cases slipped through the cracks, this one didn't. With social media keeping the pressure on, the Lagos State Police intensified their search. They released every detail they had, his height, complexion, the languages he spoke. They urged the public to be on the lookout. But the truth was, Benjamin wasn't in Lagos anymore. Still, the net was closing in. On October 20, 2023, law enforcement officials in Sierra Leone working alongside Interpol and Nigerian authorities finally made their move. The tip they had received wasn't just speculation, it was solid. Benjamin had been spotted at a nightclub, living under his new identity. When they arrived, he wasn't hiding in the shadows. He wasn't laying low in a dingy motel, fearful of being recognized. He was out in public, drinking, laughing, acting like a man without a single regret. But the moment he saw them, the moment he realized what was happening, the illusion shattered. He tried to run, but there was nowhere left to go. Benjamin Nyeri Ugo Killaboy, the man who had confessed to murder on social media, was finally in custody. For Augusta's family, the news should have been a moment of relief. The man who had taken their daughter's life was no longer free. He would finally have to face the consequences of his actions. But just when it seemed like justice was within reach, something unthinkable happened. The arrest of Benjamin Nyeri Ugo should have marked the beginning of justice. The weight of his crime, the pain he had caused, and the arrogance with which he had evaded capture, all of it should have led to one final outcome: accountability. For Augusta's family, it was the first moment in months where justice seemed possible. But fate had other plans. In November 2023, just weeks after Benjamin's capture, chaos erupted in Sierra Leone. A violent attack on the central prison in Freetown led to one of the most significant prison breaks in the country's history. More than 1,800 inmates flooded the streets, vanishing into the city, the forests, and the borders beyond. It was a coordinated assault, carried out with military precision. Explosions, gunfire, and sheer terror reigned for hours. When the dust settled, the unthinkable had happened. Hundreds of criminals, murderers, and fugitives had disappeared into the night. The world watched in disbelief as news of the escape spread. Sierra Leonean authorities remained tight-lipped, offering few details about how such a massive breach had occurred. Some reports suggested an internal power struggle, a faction within the military orchestrating the attack. Others speculated about a well-funded external force that had planned the escape for months. But for Augusta's grieving family, only one question mattered. Was Benjamin among them? At first, Nigerian authorities sought immediate confirmation. If Benjamin had indeed escaped, it would mean he had now evaded justice twice. The Lagos State Police reached out to their counterparts in Sierra Leone demanding answers, but what they received was silence. No official list of escaped inmates was released. No public statements acknowledged whether the Nigerian fugitive had been accounted for. This lack of transparency fueled endless speculation. Was he still locked away, hidden somewhere in the chaos of the post-prison break aftermath? Or had he once again slipped through the cracks, vanishing into the world like a ghost? Online rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed he had been spotted in Liberia, blending into the local nightlife just as he had done in Sierra Leone. Others insisted he had managed to return to Nigeria using yet another fake identity to move unnoticed through the country. His Instagram page, once filled with boasts of wealth and power, remained inactive. But silence does not always mean absence. Augusta's mother refused to accept uncertainty. To her, silence from officials was just another form of injustice. She intensified her campaign for answers, pushing Nigerian authorities to demand clarity. But despite her relentless pursuit, no definitive update came. To this day, there is no official confirmation on whether Benjamin remains in custody or if he is once again a fugitive. And that is what makes this case even more haunting. A man who openly admitted to murder, who fled the country, who was found and arrested, may have simply disappeared again. If he did escape, where is he now? Is he lying low, waiting for the world to forget? Or is he already rebuilding his old life, gambling away blood money in another country? Justice was within reach, but in the blink of an eye, it may have slipped away forever. The uncertainty surrounding Benjamin Nyeri Ugo's fate has left a gaping wound in Augusta's family. For her mother, Onuabagbe Cordelia, grief has turned into a relentless pursuit of justice. She refuses to accept silence as an answer. Every day that passes without resolution is a reminder that her daughter's killer may still be walking free, living a life he has no right to enjoy. The heartbreak isn't just in the loss, it's in the failure of the system to hold him accountable. A confession posted for the world to see should have sealed his fate. An arrest in Sierra Leone should have led to extradition and trial, but instead bureaucracy, corruption, and a catastrophic prison break have left everything in limbo. It's a cruel reminder that even in an age of digital footprints where a man can publicly admit to a crime, slip away and be found again, justice can still be maddeningly elusive. But Augusta's story isn't fading away. Her mother continues to fight, refusing to let the world move on as if her daughter's life was just another tragedy swept under the rug. She speaks out on social media, calls on law enforcement, and demands that Benjamin's case not be forgotten. Her pain is raw, her voice unwavering. Human rights organizations have joined the call for justice, urging Nigerian and Sierra Leonean authorities to provide clarity. Is Benjamin still behind bars, or has he disappeared once more? If he escaped, why haven't law enforcement agencies across West Africa launched a full-scale manhunt? Every delay, every unanswered question feels like another betrayal. And then there's the chilling reality. If he did escape, where is he now? Is he hiding under another name, slipping back into his old ways? The thought is unbearable, not just for Augusta's loved ones, but for anyone who has followed this case. A man capable of such brutality should not have the luxury of freedom. Augusta's story is more than just a tragedy. It is a reflection of a flawed system, a stark reminder that justice is not always swift or certain. It is a story that demands action, that demands change. Because as long as her killer remains unpunished, the message is clear. Even in broad daylight, even with all the evidence in the world, justice is not guaranteed. But there is still hope. Hope that the pressure will mount, that the authorities will act, that Benjamin, wherever he is, will no longer be able to hide. The world is watching, Augusta's family is waiting, and one thing is undeniable: this fight is far from over. If you believe justice should never be left unfinished, subscribe to the channel. Only those who believe killers should walk free will ignore this call.